This is a video on workbook template and security, focusing on the VBA part of that. Did have a previous video in this series on workbook template as relates more specifically to this Excel related issues. This video is part of the series of videos on Excel and VBA best practices. Focus on manipulating and accessing external data. This video is brought to you by PolarisInvesting.com, a site for creating defensible valuations. Recall, business valuation is based on expectations derived from skillful consideration of past facts and future possibilities. As mentioned in the introductory video, these videos are broken up into two groups, one dealing with the front-facing Excel portion that most users are familiar with, but also the back side, or dealing with VBA and kind of the underworkings of VBA. This video in particular is one of the first videos talking more about the back or the behind-the-scenes aspect of programming Excel. First topic in this video, we're going to talk about protecting your VBA project. Now, in the Excel video that talked about a similar concept, namely this video up here on the workbook template, we talked about security and how to secure things, structures at that level. But here, behind the scenes, we're talking about securing the VBA project. So what we're talking about here is, if you go to the Developer tab, Visual Basic, you can see here on the left the different modules and things that make up your VBA project. So if you want to protect it, you would go to the Tools menu, and under VBA Project Properties, select Protection, and you'd lock for viewing, and then you'd enter in a password. OK. Then I'm going to shut down the spreadsheet and then reopen the same spreadsheet. And now when we go to the VBA code, get prompted to enter a password if I want to see the project. So I just enter in the password that I entered earlier, and now I can see the different objects that make up the project. Now, a question comes up is if you password protect your VBA project or other structures within Excel with a password, the question is, how secure is it? Well, if you go out and search the internet, you find references to being able to break into Excel spreadsheet. Usually the condition is that someone's left your company and here you're left to manage their spreadsheets, and you need to get into a spreadsheet that's got password protection. Well, maybe in earlier versions, back in Office 97 through 2003, or even versions all the way up to 2013, might have had some ways to hack into it. But now, starting in Office 2016 and with applications and Office 365, they employ what's called a 256-bit advanced encryption standard key for password protection, and makes it almost impossible to break. So it is a very secure mechanism to lock down your spreadsheets. We'll also point out, while we're looking at this tools drop down, this digital signature. This is a pretty advanced feature that if you're publishing spreadsheets and you're primarily a company, and it's really not set up so much for individuals, but if you're a company and you publish spreadsheets and people out there consuming your spreadsheets, in order to give the consumers of your spreadsheet more confidence that the spreadsheet that they're opening and using is what is intended, has not been changed in any way, the producer of the spreadsheet can get a digital signature. And if I open this up, there's a process to go through here and enter a digital certificate. Well, the digital certificate comes from certification authority, and that certification authority vets the process, your request out, and then issues you a digital certificate, which you use to sign your VBA project. Now, if the VBA code from the time that the digital certificate is signed is ever changed, then the digital certificate becomes void, and therefore the end user would know not to trust the code because it's been changed since the time the digital certificate was assigned to it. A more common way to further lock down your VBA projects is to hide certain worksheets. So example here, prices will say I'm doing things in that worksheet that really end users don't need to see, and in fact I don't want them to see it. So I can come down here in the properties and change the worksheet to very hidden, and you see down here now that it's not even there. If users try to unhide, it's not even there to unhide. So maybe instead of just saying calling this very hidden, maybe it should have been called clandestine, meaning it's just hidden from view. So that's a pretty powerful property that you can set on specific worksheets. All right, next let's talk about Excel configuration that you want to make sure you have set up to make sure your VBA code will work properly. Now, we did talk about Excel configuration in a previous video and did cover some of these things already, but we'll cover them again primarily in the context of your VBA project. First off is the make sure you can see the developer menu tab item up here. The way you make sure that is visible, just go down here to options and look at the custom ribbon, and then just make sure that developer is selected here. Next, you want to go out to the Visual Basic and look under Tools, References, and make sure that all these are selected. But you need to have all these selected in order for external data access and other things dealing with VBA work as intended. I just want to talk about in one of your modules you need to have defined these public declarations in order to make sure all the functionality is available in terms of VBA code is functional. So if you look at the QueryIt module 1, you should see these already declared. And as already discussed in the Excel template video, I want to make sure that you've got it set up properly. If you go to File, Options, Trust Center Settings, you want to make sure that for external content, all the prompts are selected, and then protected view, want to make sure you got all these enabled, and macro settings, you want to make sure you have enabled macros. All right, next I want to talk about two particular built-in functions called Workbook Open and Workbook Before Close. We did talk about these in the this video up here, but we want to talk about them again to make sure that we have clear understanding of how to use them. So if you go up to the Developer, Visual Basic, in this workbook you will see that Open and then right before Close functionality. Now, as mentioned in the previous video, Open should not use, because if you publish your spreadsheet out on the internet, it's pulled down off the internet by somebody. If they have their Excel environment to prevent harmful code from being run, they'll get prompted as to whether they want to enable the content. And when they say yes, the spreadsheet's already open, so this on open functionality just doesn't work. Now when the spreadsheet's closed, this code is executed at the very end. It means at the very end, everything else gets cleaned up by Excel, then at the very end this code is called. So typically what you do as the spreadsheet's closing out is you put the spreadsheet in manual calculation mode. And the reason for that is that when the spreadsheet's opened again, before the user enables protection content, you're just guaranteeing no formulas are being calculated until that user agrees to open the content or open the spreadsheet. And then you, as talked about in an earlier video, you typically have some event, some cell that gets clicked, something that happens in your spreadsheet that you then go off and do a normal kind of startup functionality. Now in this spreadsheet called QueryIt, the way that that's being done is over here in the Manage tab. We just simply click on that cell, and that's the event that causes initialization type code to be executed. So if we follow this through and go look at the VBA code for Manage, you can see here that if A5 is selected or just clicked on, then we run through a series of steps to essentially set everything up, and then for the spreadsheet, log information, and then you can see here at the very last part of this is we turn on calculation, automatic calculation. All right, the last topic in this video is to spend a little more time on what we just talked about there. We refer to it as kind of the system checking, meaning when you first bring the spreadsheet, or soon after the spreadsheet is up, because you can't do it immediately, assuming the spreadsheet is coming from the internet. But when some event gets triggered early on after the spreadsheet is open, you want to do a system check. So if we go back to that code we were just looking at, I've commented out because there's not enough time in this sample spreadsheet that elapses that it makes sense to actually use this feature in this sample spreadsheet. But for other more full-up spreadsheets that do a full-up application, there could be some time in between operations, and instead of throwing up message boxes like we're doing here, another approach is down here in the left-hand corner. You can just simply show a status of what's going on as things are running. So you might want to say, and that's just called the application status call, and then it's text that would be displayed in the lower left-hand corner. So you can say logging date time. But again, that would happen so quick we just immediately would see this setting getting public IP, but that happens very quickly, so there's no point in doing it. But you get the idea that you can, instead of using pop-up boxes, you can, if you're not expecting any input from the user, yet you want to notify them of progress or things going on, best to use this Application.StatusBar functionality. Alright, so now the system check itself. First thing it does here is it checks to see if the spreadsheet's being opened again on the same date. And if it is, there's no reason to re-enter the date, particularly if that date is linked to it by other cells. It just causes a recalculation for no reason. So unless the date has changed since the last time the spreadsheet is opened. But if it's different, then we're going to go ahead and log in cell A1 of the managed sheet of the current date. Then we're going to always record the current time, because that time is always moving forward. And then going to go ahead and log the workbook name. And now the reason that's done every time is don't know whether this name of the spreadsheet is different each time it's open, so we have to log it each time the spreadsheet is open. Okay, the next thing it's done is in order to get ready to make this call to log that the spreadsheet's been open, now we just have a variable called open time date that we're getting out of A1, spreadsheet name, and then here we're using the VBA function ExcelVersion to put in a variable for the spreadsheet version. Next we call a Polaris provided subroutine called PublicIP, and then to get the public facing IP address of the machine that's running the spreadsheet, get the computer name and the username. And we'll look at those three Polaris provided functions here, along with the next one called IsInternetConnected, and also LatestVersion. Next, all this information that's been gathered is placed into the managed worksheet, so that other formulas in the spreadsheet can reference those cells for this type of information if they need it. And then if you have the back end to support this, a function call is made called SpreadsheetOpen. Now this sample QueryIt spreadsheet doesn't have a back end, but if you did, you'd have a function like this where you'd pass in exactly when the spreadsheet was open, the name that was used, the version, the ExcelVersion, the public facing IP address, the computer name, username, and such. And then you enable screen updating, and then put it in calculation, automatic calculation mode. Alright, so now we've gone through this, what the system check does, and let's watch it, let's run it now and watch it update these cells on the managed worksheet. So again, the way that this is invoked is you just, since we're in the selection change event, we'll just go out here and select that and get the pop-up, and then you see these values get populated in the spreadsheet. Alright, so in thing, we'll look at the wrap up here. We'll look at some of these functions that were called here in VBA. They're all here in this module 1. So if you scroll down a little bit, we will start to see them starting here. So here's the IsInternetConnected. So all this is doing is it's calling or it's trying to make contact with Google, and follow the code here. And just if it's able to make, if it comes back from that call right here without an error, then they're going to be true. Otherwise, it'll say false for connected. The public IP address, that's determined by calling this website that does an echo back to this machine and determines its public IP address. The computer name uses a VBA function called environ $ to get the computer name. Then down here for username, pass in a different string, and then the ExcelVersion uses this call to get the ExcelVersion. Now the latest version, if you have this functionality built into your backend, you can make a call to the backend SQL Server database and determine what the latest version is of the spreadsheet. And then if you had the backend to support it, you could even log the opening of the spreadsheet, and we already talked about that. That brings us to the end of this video on workbook template and security. We talked about how to secure your VBA project, a little more on some Excel configuration. You want to make sure you have set up to support VBA functionality in terms of accessing and manipulating external data. We talked about the workbook open and workbook before close, built-in functions, the Application.StatusBar, and then here at the very end we talked about suggested system check functionality you built into your spreadsheets. Alright, thanks for watching.